Hello YouTube, coming to you not live from somewhere deep inside the neutral zone. Today I wanted to show you something I just for the first time tried yesterday, which is fixing one of these Honeywell Pentax clip-on meters. These are the old school ones made in the 60s for the Spotmatic, the H1A, the S1A, all of those earlier style cameras. This happens to be a parts meter, especially now since I dropped it. So tip number one for doing this: don't drop anything, not even your parts machines. So that's what that is, and I don't have the one I fixed down here, but I will show you. The problem with it wasn't reading correctly. Oh no, that was this one. The one I wanted to fix had one of, I'm going to try and show you this. This is the battery compartment from down in here. This is where you would put the old school Mercury button batteries. This tab right here, which is supposed to have a larger plate here for the bottom of the battery to go on, had rotted off. So I wanted to swap that one out or this one out for the one that was in a sacrificial meter. So after getting this apart, actually after this is going to be a slideshow. It's an incomplete slideshow. I didn't get all the details, but I think it gives enough details so you can get into one of these and get into as much trouble, if not more, than I did. So you undo this, and the steps are shown in the slideshow. Get all this stuff off. Now these go in, surprisingly enough, from the inside. And you've got stuff and doodads here and there. Something like that. Now on this side, once you get it open, you'll see you've got two soldered connections, both of which have been unsoldered now. You unsolder those connections and you can poke that battery tray right out. It comes out the bottom in one piece with its solder tabs, hopefully still intact. I used this is the soldering iron that I used. This point is a little hefty for it, but it did the trick. A much finer tip would have been better. In any case, and then we're going to pretend now this is the new one, this is in the good meter. Stuck it back in there from inside, and then being very careful, I resoldered those two connections, and that was really all I had to do. The trick was to get this thing apart without destroying it. So this thing is like this, and you'll see it in the slideshow, and it's got its front lens. This one happens to be pretty well eaten up with fungus, so I also switched that one out. You take that off, you take out that screw and that screw, and there's a screw in the bottom of this gizmo, like so. You undo that screw, this all comes apart, and be advised, there are washers inside this thing. There is a wavy washer that goes in first, and then there will be a combination of other shim washers that go with that. This also is a flat-sided hole, so it only goes on either the right way or 180 degrees off. That will be important later on. So you get that open, you take the top off, and you're going to see this. Actually, you'll see this first. Two screws, take that off, and then you will see the rest of this. Now this is kind of a big deal. There is an E-clip, an outside E-clip that holds this ring down on that stud. Now what you can't see in any of the slides is in between the dial face and the geared bottom is a slit. It's a space all the way around. I hope I'm on camera here. There's a space in between the two all the way around. In that space is where your sweep needle goes. So the catch is, in order to get this out, unless you're more clever than I am, you're going to have to gently tweak and bend that little, oops, I'm off camera again, that little tiny needle. It's going to be all the way over to one side. I suppose you could maybe bend down one of these tiny bumpers and swing that needle even a little bit further out of the way, probably without doing any damage. I don't know. I didn't do it that way. I wiggled it out and I did my repair, and then when I went to put it all back together, I wiggled it back in there, and I had to tweak that needle because I bent it just a little bit so that it was rubbing on the underside of the plastic disc. Am I on? It was rubbing under here. So I had to reach in there with a fine tweezer, which I don't have right handy. I had to reach in there with a fine tweezer and bend that tiny, tiny, tiny needle until it wasn't touching either surface and it would float back and forth freely. And then comes the realization. You've taken this thing apart, you got all the parts laid out in front of you, and you realize you didn't mark anything. So you have to reassemble this thing and adjust it longhand. Now, I have never done this before. I have absolutely no idea if I did it right or not. And this is only my way. If somebody comes along and say, hey, that's the wrong way, listen to them. They probably know more than I do. So I put all this stuff back together. I put this on. I put that on. And I put this on. Now, in here is a gear. Okay? That meshes with this gear, which meshes with this gear, which makes all these gears turn. And what happens is that gear right there turns. Where's my rest of my thing here? It turns your F number ring as you turn this knob here. So I got it back together, got all the parts in. So I had it like this, and also this one is slightly different. Let me have a second here to take a closer look at that. We're going to get up real close here. And this one is slightly different. The one on the other meter, which I can't show you, this collar here had 2 set screws in it, and you're able to slip it off, and which is awesome because that allowed me to make my adjustments. This one, I don't quite see how this one comes apart, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time with it. The other one came apart, so I put it all back together, and then I realized that I am nowhere near where I need to be in order to use this thing. I did stick a battery in it, and the thing worked. Well, you know what? Here's that. I'm mistaken. This thing here had the set screws in it, so it comes off of that shaft. Okay, so try and keep me honest here. Long story short, I brought down my Gaussian Luna Lux, which I trust. I took a meter reading of the brand new LED lights right above my head. I noted where I used the low light setting. I noted where the needle landed. I selected a shutter speed. I'm giving this to you backwards. I took the meter reading. I saved that information, and then at this side, with this piece, I had to note. This sounds ridiculous now that I'm talking about it out loud the way I did it. I had to do the same thing with this one. I put the battery in it, and with nothing being adjusted, I just let it do its thing. I made a note of where just the needle landed. So if, let's just say, this broken needle here, that's where it landed. being up at the light. I then set to work. I got this all out of order here. I try not to be as confused as I make these things, but so anyhow. Okay, picking up again. So I took reassembled. I took a light meter reading off of my LED lights. I noted where the needle landed. I used the low light setting. I noted where the needle landed, and I compared that to the reading I got from the Gaussian, which included ASA and shutter speed. And by trial and error, I would take this thing up, and you would have to move this gear. The good thing is this is just a geared disc. It doesn't do any harm so far as I can see. I can see no electrical connections or electronic connections to the gearing itself. So you can turn this thing any way you need to, and then put the top on, set it as an example. Say my Gaussian said it was f5 at 250th of a second. I turn that. I would turn that wheel around until the needle read a 200 or a 5.6. Set the dial at 250th of a second, and then mesh the gears together. And then for the ISO, put that ring there. There's the white dot with its 2 set screws. I put this together with it. Don't forget the washers. I would line up 400 ASA or ISO with the white dot. Tighten it all up, put it together, take a reading, and see how close I was. I had to do this, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times of tweaking it, taking it apart, tweak it a little bit more, take it apart, tweak it a little bit more. And by the time I was done, I had the Gaussian and this Honeywell almost in perfect agreement. I think it's good enough to take into the field, so I'm gonna try that with the camera I just rebuilt. Another thing you can do while you've got this thing open, and it's in the slideshow, is I took a little bit of brass cleaner and I cleaned off, if you can see it, there are little contacts. This is the thing right there is your dark slide. This is for your high and low light settings. I dropped this thing so it's not working exactly right, but as you turn this outer ring from low to off to high, this plate here is what's actually moving, and it's got little contactors on it here, here, oops, here, here, and here, and also this one, and on this one it has a second one. The other meter does not. The other meter does not have a battery tester. I cleaned those off with some metal cleaner, and I got good response from that. It seems to work faster and smoother. I tell myself that, you know, cleaning the crud off the contactors made a big difference. I don't really know. So like I said, if somebody comes along and tells you that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, it's probably a good idea to listen to him, because I did this on the fly, learning as I go. But that is what it looks like. And in there, and there's your little battery door keeper. And I've seen a couple of these that had the battery contacts rotted off, presumably from batteries being left in for years on end. So that's that. I just wanted to show that to you. try and explain it a little more clearly. I don't think I did, but maybe you can get something out of it anyway. So until next time.